and get into sharing our screen. So essentially, I'm going to really cover two different approaches to workflow when you're developing a profile, and that's really workflow in terms of using the software. We're not really talking about workflow in terms of actual roasting. So let me just bring in a profile. So here, for example, is one of the profiles. I've actually pulled in an example that Wayne's been working on. So he's got a profile like that. And the first method that I'm going to talk about is one which is focused on the profile file. So I am going to want to save a different profile file for every version that I roast. And the reason that I'm going to want to save a whole series of profile files is, of course, that the little tweaks and changes we make aren't always improvements. Sometimes they make things worse, and we need to go back to an earlier version. So if we always only had one version and we kept improving it, then it would be more difficult when we wanted to undo one of our improvements that didn't work. So ideally, we want to actually keep a whole series of versions. Now, one of the ways that makes that a little bit easier is come out here to About This File and get rid of the short name. The reason I want to get rid of the short name is that I'm going to have a different file name for every version. And if my short name didn't match up with my file name, if I messed that up, then it would become very confusing for me. So I just want to get rid of that whole thing as an issue. I just want to work off file names only. So now that I've done that, and I've finished editing, let's imagine, all of the settings and curves that I want, I put a memory stick in, and can everyone see down the bottom corner there, there's a save a copy button? Yep. So I'm going to save onto the memory stick. Actually, I don't want to replace that because I'm going to start with a file naming convention. So I'll do a save as. And now I'm going to have to tell it where. And so if I just go back to my memory stick, yep, and put it in my roast profiles folder. But what I'm going to call it is I'm going to call it Altitude 2000 version 1. So I've put all that in the file name. Now this is just a little warning, and it's telling me that Altitude 2000 version 1, when I load it into the roaster, it's going to trim the 1 off because it only takes 15 characters. So that wasn't a very useful approach. So I'll try again. And I'm just going to have to rethink that naming convention. I'm going to call it Alt 2000 version 1. Yeah, and this time it'll load into the roaster using the full file name. Does that make sense? Yeah. So then what it means is I'm going to eject my memory stick. Yep. And pull it out. And away I go to my roaster, run a roast, come back, pop the memory stick in. And now I can open up the log, and if I use the button here, the view memory stick button, I can pop in and open up a log that way. Alternatively, I can just use the open file. And actually at this stage, that's what I'm going to do, because I want to open where did mine's? Yeah, there we go. I'm going to actually open a log. Now I'm looking at a log like this, and as soon as I open it, I immediately say, whoa, we're departing from the profile line quite significantly coming along here. And so this is something that I might well be working on, and so I'm going to pop back into my profile settings and I'm going to make some changes. Now in today's session, I'm not going into the kinds of changes you might make. What we're doing is we're just looking at, yep, I'm working away, making changes. But obviously I can't change them in here because this is a log, and a log is a record of history, and history is those were what was set for that roast. So in order to make changes, I'm going to need to go back to the profile. And so I'm kind of going to have my notebook beside the computer, and I'm going to be making wee notes about what things I want to change. Just like if you were editing a bit of text, you would make some notes about the edits you were going to make, and then you maybe jump in and make the edits. So I'm making a few notes about how I want to change some of these zones. Maybe I want to move some of these points. I've got a pretty good idea how I want to go about it. And so the next thing I do is I'm going to open up that profile. Now, having opened up that profile, I then make the changes that I want to make. Over here, whatever they might be. I probably don't want to make any changes in the description while I'm really working on developing something. So I've made my few wee changes, but I don't just want to save that back over, remember, because my system at the moment tells me that every version is going to be a different file, so I have to save this as version 2. Change that to v2. Yep. And save it. I've done that, so now I eject, cycle round, come back. So it's always come back, look at the log, come back to the profile, save a new version. And then when I come to the end of my development period, my profile development period, I will have version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5 of the profile. And then I'll have a whole bunch of logs that go with those. So it might be for one version, I do 3 or 4 roasts, and I've got 3 or 4 logs that relate to one particular version. So when you open up a log, you'll then see in here, it'll tell you the profile file name. So you'll have your version in there, and you can also put notes in here. So you might have done things a little bit differently about the load of beans or the type of beans or whatever. So you pop your notes in there. So what you're doing is you're compiling a set of profile versions and a set of logs that go with them. Does that kind of mesh with your workflow, Wayne, or are you doing something radically different?
No, Chris. It definitely does mash in with the workflow. I must say I do exactly the same. And look, my save as listings are slightly different. So I work with more folders in a specific folder on my desktop, and I work like that, you know. But essentially, absolutely correct in what I do. I actually learned that way, or started adapting that way, or adopting that way, after my first couple of days of trying to create profiles. And I found that I was getting so confused between saving, and over saving, and saving over a specific saved profile, that I didn't know whether I had made changes or whether I hadn't made changes. So I was constantly second guessing myself. So I actually did exactly what you're doing now, whereas I just used the save as function, and I literally opened a folder on my desktop called, for example, in this case, altitude 1,500 to 2,000. And I essentially just saved as version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4 into that actual folder. And when I got a complete version, which would be version 4 or version 5, I would then rename that and resave that into a complete file. So if that makes sense, into a complete file next to that file. So my way around is a little bit longer-winded, but that kept me sane. It kept me sane, and it just kept me from reverting back to what I'd previously done. And it just gave me a little bit more clarity on the direction that I'm going. It's also, for me, it's important to then, when the KAFFELOGIC saves the logs, it saves the logs in chronological order of your roast. So if you roast 5 roasts, your first log will be log 1. Your last log, your 5th roast, will be log 5. And it was important then to match those logs up with the specific version profile.
Yeah. So in effect, you should drag them and drop them into the folders that go with the profiles.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little bit more admin to do that, or a little bit more setting up of the framework to do that. But I found then I was literally just doing that, which was just, just dragging logs and dragging profiles, and it was easy. Yeah.
No, I think it is. And it's the same with writing anything. You've got a drafts folder, and you keep all your versions in your drafts folder, and you've got a final copy folder, and you put the finals into that. It's a good ordered system, and it works really well. Now, there is another way you can actually do this, and I don't know whether it might just appeal to some people more than others. So there's a second way, which is where you don't keep any profile versions, but you just rely on the log file. And I'll show you how that would work, because I think that everyone will just adopt the system that works best for them. And I think the system that you're using, Wayne, and which I've just shown, is probably the most comprehensive and methodical way to go. And maybe what I'm going to show you now is a little bit of a shortcut, but it would go like this. I've just done a roast. Oh, the other thing I didn't show you, I tell you what, this is what I need to show you. When I have come to editing my profile, I may very well want to put in a compare of the log. So I'm going to need to find that log. So actually this was oh no, that is the same profile. Yeah, so I find the log, so I can put in a compare of the log. It just helps me when I'm editing the profile, because I've got the log sitting there faint in the background. So that's another trick to remember as part of that cycle. So you look at the log, analyze it, then you open the profile, then you put in the log as a compare while you work on the profile. And that also is quite handy over in the settings. It actually shows you the difference, on all the settings that you've changed. So it's quite a good thing to know. However, let's look at the other workflow, which is log-based, and it goes like this. I've pulled up a log, and actually you've renamed these logs. Normally the log would be just a number, like it might be number 7. Yeah. So I do the same thing. I'll turn off that compare. I have a look at the log, I work out what changes I want to make. Now I go extract profile from log. And at this point, I can look at my profile and look at my log data and decide whether, oh, actually, I logged it at 212. I think that's better than what I used to have in the profile. And the level at 1.9, I think is a better recommended level than 3.2. So cool. Extract. Now you can see the log is still there in the background, and I can do the editing that I need to do. And in this workflow, I now save it back over the other profile. So I keep it with its same name and I just hit save. Then when I run the next roast, it will have, the log will have number 8. So then I bring up log number 8. And I look at any changes I might want to make. So to make those changes, I simply extract the profile from the log, make the changes, and save it back with the same name. And now if I want to go back to an earlier version, I do it by finding the earlier log. I look at all the logs and I pick the log I like the most. Then I extract the profile out of that log, and that's my finished profile. So in other words, I'm not storing profile versions, I'm relying on the log to keep my profile versions for me. And then all I've really got for my record of work is a set of logs. Each one with a different profile embedded in it, and I can go back and pick out my favorite, grab that profile, and away I go. Now what it does is it reduces the number of files that you've got, but it also means it can get a little bit more confusing. Like if you do 3 roasts on one profile and then 4 roasts on the next profile, they're all just numbered logs, and it's not so obvious. I mean, it is, you are assisted here that it does give you the profile name, but they'd all be the same, you see, because with that, so you'd be looking at a list of logs and they'd all have the same profile name and all the same details, and it becomes a little bit more difficult. But it's a nice quick way to just work your way through 3 or 4 iterations of a profile, just working off the logs. So that provides just another way of managing your workflow. So I just really wanted to take people through that and show that you only need to keep a log, and from a log you can extract a profile, make changes, save it back. And in the end, if you are looking, you know, if you've been going a little bit all over the place and you got yourself a bit lost, but you've got a log of a roast that you really like, then you can always go back to that log and extract that profile, and you know that that profile, regardless of how else you've messed up your folders and namings and whatever, you always have extracted the profile that actually drove that log that gave you the coffee you wanted. So the extract profile is a pretty powerful tool in that sense. I don't know if that's sort of clear enough or detailed enough, but that's what I wanted to say. So let's open up for questions.
Yep. So Chris, I do exactly that with the logs. So I find that when I really like a specific roast, and this is, I often find that I find it 2 days later, or I find it the next day if I cup the coffee or if I try the coffee. I typically, you know, I'll go on my actual samples, and I've got a roast sample. I've actually got a batch of beans in front of me that I've roasted. I then write on that the profile that I've roasted. So it'll be altitude 1,500 to 2,000, for example. And then I write log 1, log 2, log 3, log 4, log 5, for example. So I've got them all on a table in front of me. And then I'll taste them and I'll go, wow, I really like log 3, for example. Log 3 is the 1 out of 5 I really enjoy. I will then take that log and I will then rename that log, if that makes sense. So I know, looking through a whole list of logs, you know, I know that log 3 is the log that I really like. Because at the end of the day, if you go kind of 2 days or 3 days into tasting coffee, you might not remember what logs you like. So I only change the log, I only rename and resave the log that I really like, you know, and then I'll make a note in that. So I'll go really like log or beautiful sweet log, because in your renaming of the log, you can rename it as long as you want it, you know. So I'll go really nice sweetness or really, you know, and that'll be the third log that I choose, you know. And that's how I start to segment my roast and kind of do that. But I have done the other way where you actually extract the profile as well. I have used that, and what I like about that is when you're making quick changes, you know that it's a subtle change you're going to make. You know that it's just a subtle change that you need. You can quickly just extract that log, make that change, save it back to that file. Or sometimes you might forget something. You might go, oh, damn, you know, did I put that zone in that I should have put in? And you quickly just extract the log, you put the zone in, you save, and then you roast it, you know. So the extracting that profile is really good. I also like to use the compare function with the log, because I like to go, well, where did I put that zone in? Now, instead of me now going back to the profile and then back to the log and back to the profile, I can have that comparison there that I'm looking at. And if I go into my profile settings, it will tell me what that comparison was to the log that I actually have compared to it, which is quite nice. And then I can adjust it either 20 seconds up, 20 seconds down, 1 minute up, 1 minute down, whatever it is I really want to adjust. Too much, I can adjust the zone boost down or into the negative if I need to. So that compare function really works well.
Cool. Okay. Now, any questions or comments from, who else have we got? Nick and Mike. Anyone else there? I might just stop sharing.
Yeah, look, I think everybody comes up with their own ways of managing profiles and things. My take's a little bit different. I just keep all the logs sequentially numbered. I haven't ever deleted one off the USB key. It just trucks along. And I keep a spreadsheet of each roast log, what the beans were, and I note down first crack and make comments against each one. Where that's been useful is over time, it means with the spreadsheet, I can filter out a particular bean and have a look at, say, where I'm actually seeing first crack over a variety of different profiles and things, and it lets me look at that a bit differently. But again, everybody does things their own way. That's just how I've approached it. So I have a fairly careful naming convention with profiles. I leave the logs just with their default name as they come out of the KAFFELOGIC, but I have a spreadsheet that tells me what each log was, and I make notes against that. So that's how I deal with it.
Yeah, so you're essentially building a single database of logs.
Yeah, it's on my list of things to do, to hack together something in Access to do that a bit more competently than an Excel spreadsheet, but an Excel spreadsheet certainly does the trick.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Silence.
Silence? Oh, that's all right.
Thanks. Yeah, that was all good, useful information for extracting profiles. Thanks, Chris. Didn't didn't know about being able to extract those different parameters like level and first crack and things. So that was really good. Thanks. Just interesting that you're using that altitude profile, because I tried that one ahead of the group tasting session, which unfortunately I wasn't able to attend last Friday. And I guess it was interesting result. It was probably not maybe quite what I was after in a roast, but then I tried the lower altitude one, which according to what the information I could find for my beans was more suitable, and that one's awesome. So thanks for that, Wayne. That one's, you can't see my thumbs up. I've got the camera off. That one was really good.
That's fine. That's fine. If I was in the same room, I'd hug you. So it's perfect, Simon. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you notice with those profiles of Wayne's is they're very precise for maximising the flavour, quality, natural quality of the coffee. So it's interesting that you found that when you went to the one that was more appropriate to the coffee, it really made it sing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful feedback. Thanks, Simon, man. Appreciate it. Your free second Cafe Logic is on the way to you right now.
Wayne.
Look, if we're going to get UPSs, we needed a redundant array of Cafe Logic roasters. It's just in case.
Okay, thanks, guys. It's been good to be on the forum with you. My job is officially over, and I will be fired from tomorrow, so I will not see you guys again. Thank you. Appreciate it. No, thank you, Simon. Fantastic. And just to kind of touch on what Chris has done today, I think that workflow, essentially to get those profiles, the biggest challenge of getting altitude profiles to essentially be altitude profiles, to play in those bands, is the challenge is to get the correct workflow for them, you know. So it's multiple roasting, multiple tasting, multiple consistent roasting and tasting. And I can tell you what, it's made it so much easier to use things like comparative profiles. It's made it so much easier to kind of pull a profile up against another and tweak and design. And I think that's how we got the profile to be so specific between, or coffee specific between the medium profile or the low profile and the 1,500 to 2,000, is the fact that, you know, I really use the KAFFELOGIC system, you know, the KAFFELOGIC system to its fullest when it came to comparing. And it's just about these slight little tweaks in adjustments. And that's what's really started to shine out of the coffee. So thank you. I think it's just merit in a good workflow. I'm not saying my workflow is good at all, because I'm not known for good workflow, but it's just merit in, I think, what KAFFELOGIC can do from a work profile, from a workflow perspective, and the tools that it gives us to use to actually promote these profiles.
Yeah, and that so that comparative profile looked really good. I know at least once when I was sort of poking and prodding and tweaking, I managed to get the profile so far out of whack, I binned it and started again. Whereas having that comparative thing sitting in the background, you know, I'd be able to see, you know, what I started with and where I was getting horribly off track with it. So that's great.
Yeah, in fact, when you're starting an editing session, you can bring the current profile, the one you're actually editing, you can bring it in as a comparison, and it'll therefore, all your changes will become immediately visible against the background. It's good.
Yes.
We better wrap up for today. Now, tomorrow we'll have an open session, so any oddball questions that you have, bring them tomorrow. And also, hopefully we'll set up another cupping for Friday with another one of your profiles, Wayne.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just dependent on how much coffee, what type of altitude coffees you guys have. So maybe in the forum, I'm going to put up 2 profiles today on the forum, if that's okay for you, Chris. And I'd like you guys just to take the profile that just matches your specific origin. Okay?
Fantastic.
And we'll just brew it. We'll brew it again on Friday.
Yay. Thanks, Wayne. So we'll go over that tomorrow as well. And thank you very much for joining us, and welcome, Mike, for your first appearance. And maybe we'll have more of a chat with you tomorrow.
Okay.
Because we're out of time now. So.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
See you tomorrow.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, bye.